Getting stuck with a counterfeit bill in the real world is pretty crummy. And likewise, in poker, when you get stuck with a counterfeit 2-pair by the river, you'll feel really bad about yourself. Let's try to prevent that sadness by defining counterfeiting in poker and then talking about strategy adjustments that you can make to avoid losing too much money when you notice there's a risk of counterfeiting. In our hand example, we'll have 9-7, and we'll be in a heads-up pot, or even a heads-up game, if you will, with the dealer button. Our villain has ace-king, and we just know this after the fact when we study the hand. The flop comes out 9, king, 2. It's a pretty good flop for us. We have middle pair. Before we knew his hand, we're thinking a king is in his range, so we'll check and call his bet, see what happens on the turn. The turn brings a 7. Wow, we have 2-pair. We went from being way behind to way ahead. So we lead out. If he raises us, we might even re-raise. We want to build a big pot. We think we have him dialed in on that king, and we need to extract value. So here comes the river. It's a 2. That's weird. There's a pair of 2s on the board. What does that do? Oh, well, we have 2-pair. They're higher than 2s. But notice our opponent now, of course, has 2-pair as well. And he has a higher 2-pair. 2-pair hands are ranked by the value of the highest pair. King 2s beat 9-7s. Darn. Terrible luck, you think. There's only 3 2s in the deck that give our opponent that hand. So on the flop, we were thinking, oh, we have a pretty good hand. Let's play it conservatively, see what happens. Remember, we check called. I think we played it right there. And then, wow, on the turn, we didn't even have to worry. We weren't making a move. We were just building a pot when we were way ahead. So we bet, and even if you have the opportunity, you might even re-raise when he raises you. And then that river, whoa. This is like a red light. You need to notice when the board counterfeits you. Now we have to change gears all of a sudden. It feels terrible because we just did everything we could to build a big pot on the turn, but now you got to think about pot control. Check call if you think a king's in his range, and if you really have him dialed in on a king, you might even be able to find a fold. In the long run, you're going to have to build capability of folding some 2-pair hands when you're counterfeit on the river. So you're saying to yourself, wow, that's terrible luck. I hate the game of poker. But let's actually look at the numbers to show that it wasn't really that awful of luck. And you're going to get counterfeit fairly often if you play enough hands. Let's rewind to the turn. So forget the 2 came out. It's the 7. We just built the pot. Let's look at each player's equity in the hand. Our opponent has 5 outs. We have the other 41. And we're doing this calculation from each other's perspective. So there's really just 4 flop cards seen, 4 board cards seen in R2, so 6. That's 52 minus 6 for a total of 46 remaining unseen cards. I know he has 2 showing, but let's not count those. And from his perspective, he won't count ours. But anyways, he has 5 outs. Of course, 3 aces. That would give him a better 2-pair. And 2 remaining kings to give him a set. And this is in a world where we're ignoring counterfeiting. And it sounds crazy, but actually almost every novice and some intermediates live in that world. They just maybe haven't played enough hands to get into enough counterfeiting situations where they've thought about it. That's good enough for him for just about 10% equity. He has a 10% chance of hitting one of his aces or kings. We, of course, have the other 90% equity in the hand. But now let's add in counterfeiting. So he gets 3 more outs. 3 2s. And what does that do to his equity? It actually jumps it up to 17%. I hope that surprises you a little bit. He almost doubled his equity with this concept of counterfeiting. So our 2-pair on the turn wasn't that strong after all. Instead of 90, we had 83%. And 83% still is a monster favorite on the turn. But notice that 3 out of our opponent's 8 outs weren't an ace or king. So next time that 2 comes, calm yourself down, realize it was almost as likely as him hitting an ace or a king. Change gears, try to save a little bit of money, pot control, check call, and if you're really tuned in to your opponent's hand ranges, you might even be able to find a fold.